As you can probably tell by our faces, we are so excited that the New York Jets get to torture us for the second time in, 5 days now? But anyway, regardless, welcome back to another special edition of the Let's Debate podcast powered by Delahanty Media. I'm one of your co-hosts, Nick Delahanty. To the side of me is my co-host, Kyle Delahanty. And Kyle, I got to just ask, I know we're going to talk about it later on, but on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you to watch the New York Football Jets play tonight?
I mean, I would go lower than a 1 if I could, but we'll jump into that later. All I can say is I'm hoping for a Jets loss, and I feel like the majority of fans are. But like we said, we'll jump into that later on. We have a lot of sports to talk about today. There's a lot going on in the sports world. We have two of the leagues that we like to cover in the postseason. One of the leagues just wrapped up, and another one's in the regular season. But like we said, the good old New York Jets, our good old New York Jets play tonight. The team that brings us happiness week in and week out. So we're definitely going to touch on them later. But before we jump into that, you guys know the deal. You can always head over to Delahanty Media to check out our previous episodes. We'll try to give you guys a ton of different options, try to make it as convenient as possible to check out our episodes. You can find us on social media as well. Find us on Facebook, Let's Debate Podcast, Instagram at Delahanty Media, and Twitter, Let's Debate Pod. But like I said, we have a lot to talk about, so I think we should get the ball rolling.
We really do. And let's give them a little bit of an agenda for the show tonight. We're going to talk about the NBA Finals. Obviously, we're past Game 1. We're going to take you right up to kickoff tonight. But we're going to start off with some of the other sports that we like to talk about so much. And the NBA Finals is underway, and we'll get into that in just a moment. Then a quick recap of the NHL Finals. You know, we got to credit the NHL for what they did. We'll take a look at that Finals. That series has wrapped up. And then Major League Baseball. We're underway in the postseason. The Yankees are fresh off a 2-game sweep against the Cleveland Indians. We'll break that down and more. And then the last half hour or so, we're going to get into New York Jets football. And you know what? We may bash the Jets. We may have a lot of fun with this. We may pick them to win tonight. You never know what's going to go on over the next hour of our show. But like Kyle said, follow us on social media for all the good things and updates regarding our shows and much more. Now, NBA Finals. You picked the Los Angeles Lakers to get into the Finals. And for those of you who see me kind of struggling, Kyle's going in and out screen-wise, so you might see me have to fix him during the show. You picked the Los Angeles Lakers to go to the Finals. I picked the Clippers. You were right about the first half. I think you took the Bucks in the East, or...
Yes, I believe I had Lakers, Bucks, and Lakers taking it all.
I had the Bucks and the Clippers. Shows how much I know, but now let me ask you. After Game 1, obviously, it was a bit of a blowout. The score really didn't indicate how big of a deficit it was. Do you think the Heat, now considering the injuries to Dragic and Bam, do you think they have a chance in this series?
I mean, yeah, the game last night, from a fan's perspective, it wasn't enjoyable at all. And I'm a LeBron fan, and I'm rooting for the Lakers, and I'd still like to see more of a competitive contest than there was last night. I mean, the Heat showed some fight in the beginning. I think they went on a 13-0 run in the first quarter at some point. But then the Lakers locked in and ran away with it. What I did notice was I feel like the Lakers just have too much size for them, too much talent, too much depth, and not even just basketball experience, but NBA Finals experience. I mean, the Heat are a bunch of young guys, you know, and they don't have really much title experience at all, where the Lakers have a ton of guys. You can name a bunch of guys on that team who have been in the finals and have been in the league for a long time. But with Dragic and Bam out now, I didn't give the Heat much of a chance to begin with, but you have to remember it's only Game 1. Like, anything could happen. Lakers could go down with some big injuries. We have no idea what could happen. So the way it's looking right now, you got to think this is going to be a wash, but anything could happen in the NBA. What do you think?
I think the Lakers are going to easily take this. I really do. The injuries combined with, like you said, the experience from the Lakers side of things, I think that overall this mapped out very nicely for LeBron James, how it played out. And, you know, right now he's the best player on the planet. Nobody debates that. Nobody second guesses that. Yeah, he's frustrated about the MVP, but again, it is what it is. You got to look at this series as a whole, and you just have to think that Davis and LeBron are way too much for the Heat to handle, especially given the injuries. If you have all these injuries, you're not going to be able to stop what the Lakers have coming. You know, and veteran leadership from the top two guys like we talked about, and I just don't think this goes past 5 games. I don't think the Heat are going to have enough, and the injuries that they've sustained early on in this series, I think, are going to really dictate the outcome. Now, Scottie Pippen made a really interesting comment the other day, and I want to hear your take on it. He said it's like watching street ball, the NBA bubble. Do you get that sense from watching the games? Because honestly, on my end of it, I can get that bit of a feel. Sometimes it doesn't actually feel like pickup games. Like when they're in the off season and the guys meet up in New York and they're all playing. There's like all the best talent. That's what it feels like at some point to these games.
Yeah, I don't know if we used the word street ball, but I think we, in our previous episodes when this all got started, that they were going to be in this bubble, I think we did mention once the playoffs kind of kicked off that it did feel like pickup basketball. And I think it's because they're not feeding off the fans. They can really only feed off each other at this point. And I think they are playing at a high level. I mean, the games have been good. They have been entertaining. So I could agree with that. I don't know so much street ball, but I would say pickup basketball. Like street ball to me on the outside is a little bit more rough. Like there's no refs. They people play dirty. But I would say more pickup basketball. Like the example you used is accurate. Just how they play in the off season in open gyms, and so yeah, I could agree with that.
Yeah, I had no problem with it, and I agree with you. The street ball may be a little bit too drastic, considering when you go to play street ball, everybody plays tough. There's no organization to it whatsoever, but it made sense. Like look at some of the guys that really dominated in the bubble, like T.J. Warren. You can name a bunch of guys, even Tyler Herro, for that matter. These guys may have been better off without fans. If you miss a shot in a bubble, you're not getting booed off the court. If you make a bad play and cost the team the game, you're not hearing it from a fan base. You're able to play, and I think the pressure's off on these guys because they have the opportunity to just sit back and be like, I'm playing the game I love to play. It's just like when I was playing growing up, and yeah, people are watching, but you kind of take that element out of it, and it allows these guys to be more loose.
Yeah, you definitely, when you take that element out of it, it changes the game. I also think that it doesn't feel the same either, which is expected, right? Like you take the fans out of any sporting event, it's not as good, but it's strange. It's like, usually every year you turn on the NBA Finals and there's like a different feel to it. You can just tell it's the finals with the way that the crowd is and how the commentators are and how the players are and how they feed off those fans. And this year it's just different. It really just seems like they're playing basketball, and they know that, listen, by winning or losing, it could help or hurt your legacy. That's really what it's coming down to. It's not, you don't get that entire feel, like that big moment, spotlight's on you, you're in the NBA Finals. We were watching a few months ago, The Last Dance, right? You saw how big those moments were with the Bulls with the Bulls in the finals. It's weird to think that, like, down the line, let's say LeBron James wins, or the Lakers win, I should say, and LeBron gets his fourth. It's one of those is inside a bubble, and you can't take it away from him. But there's that part of like the big stage to me is it's not there.
And I feel like people discredit this finals, and I'm not one that will, because obviously like the way the circumstances are and the toughness that you have to not only isolate yourself in a bubble, but also be away from your family for such a long, extended period of time. You're taking these people out of their regular lifestyles. Like, yes, of course, when you're out of the bubble, you're traveling, you're doing different things. But you're out, you're in public, you see people, you do other things. They've been secluded for how long now? Like, that's a tough thing. And to say it takes away from a guy like LeBron's legacy, you hear the argument all the time from people. I just don't think that's a logical case. I just think that, yeah, you may look at it differently than the other three. Shorter season by a little bit, the no fans, the isolation. But a title's a title. At the end of the day, you had to go out and be the best you could be to win a title. It's not like that's handed to you. So I don't know if I discredit it. I definitely think that this year may be the toughest mentally that we've seen, because, like you said, there's no fans to feed off of. There's no family. Well, there was until, 2 weeks ago? They couldn't have their families in the bubble. And you're in this isolation. It's a whole different ballgame. And then, on the matter of that, you're worried about if your family's getting sick on the outside. Like, it's not an easy thing to do. And I give a lot of these players credit because, they deserve it. They've put a lot of effort into making this work.
Yeah, you definitely can't discredit it. At the end of the day, I mean, listen, they played half the season before this all happened. The season got suspended, unfortunately. But all those teams that went inside the bubble were deserving to be there, right? They're the best players on the best teams. And come playoff time, you're still playing basketball. Whether there's fans there or not, whether you're in a bubble or you're in an arena, you're still playing basketball. It's like, who's on the court is versing each other, and the best team's going to come out on top. And it's not like the Lakers were some fluke. I mean, they were at the top of the conference and the league the whole year. So they've just been the best team all year. I know we both sound like this series is a wrap already, and that they were hoisting the trophy last night. I mean, it looks like it's going to be that way, but like I said from the start, you never know what could happen. I mean, one of these top players could go down, and that could completely change the entire landscape of the series. So you don't want to speak too soon. I mean, Jimmy Butler could be hoisting it by the end of the series.
Yeah, you never want to discredit anybody, but the way it feels, it's just like the Lakers are going to run away with it. And you hate to kind of make the analogy to Kobe Bryant because he passed earlier in the year, but it just feels like the Lakers are due, and what a more fitting year for them to end the drought than the year that Kobe was tragically taken away from us. So you think 5 games? 6 games? How are you feeling about this series?
It's tough. I'm going to say 5. Only because, I mean, listen, with Bam and Dragic out, game 2, I say Lakers take that. But I could see maybe the Heat being down 2-0 or 3-0 and realizing maybe they get Bam back at least. Like, listen, guys, we got to pick one up. And we've talked about this in the past. It seems like a little bit of a trend for the Lakers. They've at least dropped one game in every series they've played thus far. So I feel like it's kind of fitting. But there's no way. Like, 5 is the max. It's either going to be 4 or 5. 5 is the max. What do you think?
I agree with you with 5. I jinxed them last time. I said they were going to sweep Denver, but they took them to 5. So I'll go 5 with you there. I would like to see a more competitive series. I would love to see it go 6 or 7, but I don't think the Heat have the firepower to do it, especially with the injuries that we've talked about. So I'm going to go Lakers in 5, and I'm going to stick with that. Knowing me, it'll be an extra game, so it'll go 6. But jumping from one bubble to another, the NHL wrapped up their season. Tampa Bay Lightning won the Cup 4-2, and you just got to give credit. I watched the series. I watched a couple of games in the Western and Eastern Conference Finals. You just have to credit them for how great of a job they did in terms of their bubble.
Yeah, no doubt. Like Nick mentioned, Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup. I believe that was the second time in franchise history. I think they won back in 2004 against the Flames. Listen, they had a nice season. They played well before. COVID stopped the season, and then they put themselves in a position to play in that round robin of the top 4 teams in their conference. And they played well throughout the entire playoffs. They were really never – I don't feel like they were ever really down much. They played a hot team in the Dallas Stars in the Stanley Cup Final, and they won. They were fortunate enough to get their best player, Steven Stamkos, back. I know that was a big headline in the NHL at the time. But, it's crazy what a year or two could do, because last year they went into the playoffs as the 1 seed and lost to the 8 seed, the worst team in the conference in the first round. And then a year later, they deal with everything going on with COVID, and they win the Stanley Cup. So, congratulations to Tampa Bay Lightning and all their fans. But like Nick said, more importantly, you kind of have to take your hats off to the NHL, because they did a great job. I mean, from the way that they kind of put a plan together and executed it, I mean, they jumped on a plan and they stuck to it early on. They gave their fans an idea, like, listen, we're going to get this season back underway. There's nothing to worry about. And they stuck to it, and credit to all those players. I mean, they stuck to their isolation. They administered how many tests? I don't think a single positive COVID test came out. And you know what? They added a cool twist to their playoff format. I really liked that. They had the qualifiers, then the top 4 teams in each conference had the round robin. I think they did a hell of a job.
I agree with you. It was fun. It was entertaining. A lot of people had a lot of interest in the sport, which I think was great. In a time where you can market your sport and market your brand, people were able to watch games. People were able to see what was going on. People were able to tune in. And, for somebody like myself who doesn't really have a dog in the fight, I was watching games just to watch games. I may not know every single player on the ice for these teams, but it was fun and competitive to watch. And the only thing that I wish was that Game 6 of the Finals would have went into overtime. I think it would have been a little bit better if it would have went into overtime. I would have loved to have seen them win in overtime. I think it would have added a little bit more, especially given the circumstance. But like you said, great job by the NHL. And you got to give credit to the NBA, too. They've done a great job as well, but I like the different twists and turns they had in their postseason format. They went in, they had a plan, they knew how they wanted to capitalize it, and they went from there. So, you know what? You got to give them credit. A job well done. And I think that they're gaining fans from it. I think that it's just a matter of having that marketing ability in a time where we necessarily didn't have many sports or anything to really watch. Now, Major League Baseball, they're starting their postseason, and they're going to go into a bubble as well. But the first round matchups are at the higher seeds home field. So we have a couple of series that are already wrapped up. Obviously, we are recording before our show for our 7 o'clock slot because obviously we're going to get mentally prepared for the Jets to disappoint us somehow. And you're looking at the way the playoffs have gone so far. And the American League has been a little bit of a, I don't want to even say an easy type of field, but you had a couple of teams that really took care of business. So let's start with Tampa Bay. Tampa takes care of the Blue Jays in 2. Houston upsets Minnesota. Minnesota's terrible in the postseason. And the New York Yankees take care of the Cleveland Indians. Not that it was an easy game in Game 2, but the Yankees were able to take care of business. What were your takes on these early series? Now, mind you, Oakland and Chicago are playing their Game 3 today to decide who moves on.
To get my hand later on the postseason. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I would love to see that. So I'm kind of happy they're still in. And then we have the Yankees. You know, my take on the Yankees, listen, Cole did exactly what we wanted him to do, right? We gave him all that money to come into the postseason and dominate. He did that. Can't complain about the bats. What, they put up 22 runs in 2 games? I mean, you can't complain about that. And the bats are the only reason we got through Game 2. And, you know, in my opinion, I mean, we put up 10 runs. Every time we came back, the bullpen would kind of choke, and we'd have to pull them out. So I'm happy the Yankees moved on. And then, like you mentioned, Chicago and Oakland's going on right now. That's a competitive series, too. That's a toss-up. I don't really have a prediction for that. We're just going to have to see how that Game 3 plays out.
Absolutely. And, you know, Toronto I didn't think had a chance. I think Tampa's too good. That Yankees-Rays series is going to be phenomenal. I just think that they're going to both bat heads at each other because they both hate each other. I think it's going to be great. Minnesota had a chance to be a hero in the United States and in the world, and they choked. They could have knocked off Houston. They could have done what everybody wanted to see happen. They couldn't get the job done. They're a fraud, an absolute fraud. I can't even imagine that. And then the Yankees, number one, you go into that game with Cole. Obviously, he dominates. You're thinking it's going to be a low-scoring game. Shane Bieber on the other side, American League Triple Crown winner for pitchers, going to be the Cy Young. He had his worst start of the year, had the yips in the postseason there, 7 runs. They really dominated Game 1. Game 2, Aaron Boone tried everything and anything in his power to mess up, and the Yankees' bats were just too much for him to even mess up. And, you know, the only concerning thing about the Yankees is the pitching. Other than Cole, Tanaka, and I understand the 2 rain delays didn't help him, but he's been bad for his last 4 starts. He hasn't been very good. They don't have much depth behind him. And last night, every time one of the big-name bullpen guys came in, they couldn't get the job done. Going to Loizaga with Britain when they made the change to take Josh Naylor out. Going to Loizaga there made no sense. Why would you take out your best reliever? Chapman available in the 8th inning. Why wouldn't you give him a clean inning and let him go 2 innings? Those are the kind of things that Aaron Boone's going to need to shore up because if he doesn't, he's going to be outmanaged by Kevin Cash, and that's something the Yankees can't afford. The only thing is you got to make sure the offense keeps going. They had a lot of really good at-bats and a great game plan against Bieber and Carrasco. They got Carrasco out in, the 4th or 5th inning? They're going to have to do that against Snell and against Glasnow and against the Rays bullpen. They have a lot of good arms. It's going to be a really interesting series. I think that it could go 5, and if it goes 5, you got to think the Yankees have an advantage going to Garrett Cole in that decisive Game 5.
Yeah, if it ends up going 5 with Cole on the mound, I mean, I would hope that he's able to pull it out. I mean, like I mentioned before, that's kind of what they're paying him for. It's for those big games. So, but yeah, pitching's the thing that scares me, and it's like a trending topic because last year was the same thing. The years prior it was the same thing. It's the pitching. The pitching scares me the most when it comes to the Yankees in the postseason, and we have our ace this year. We've just been dealt with some injuries where these other guys aren't available, and you have a guy like Tanaka who's our number 2 right now. And listen, I like Tanaka. I felt confident in Tanaka in the past years in the postseason because you feel like he always kind of steps up, but at the same time, Tanaka's inconsistent. You know, there are times he's on and there are times he's off. And when he's off, I feel like he tends to be slow in the beginning and then he'll get things going, but you need to help him out with that run support. So we just have to hope and pray that the offense keeps going and keeps hitting the way that they're hitting and putting up runs. But yeah, it's not going to be an easy task taking on Tampa. They've outplayed us whole year.
I think the main things about the Yankees in general is the record doesn't indicate how bad the series was. You know, they were 9-1, or the Rays were like 9-1 or 8-2 against the Yankees this year. But the Yankees were never healthy at one point during those series. You remember they lost Judge at one point in that series. They lost Stanton at one point in those series. Now they're healthy. Let's see what the difference is there. And the other thing that I have to go back to this Cleveland game last night because not only was it on till like 1:30 in the morning, but I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, Britton, Chapman, Green, Loaiska all threw over 20 pitches. They all were called on to try to get more than one inning of work. What would have happened if the Yankees would have lost that game and went into a decisive Game 3 and had J. Happ on a mound? What if J. Happ would have given him 1 inning or 2 innings? Tanaka looked like garbage at first, and that was I kind of chalked that up to the monsoon that kind of hit, especially with the splitter. He couldn't really get a grip of it, but they were down 4-0 early right there, and then you're like, oh boy, they're in trouble. But luckily they were able to pull it out, and they avoided that Game 3 because I think that we all would have had Ajita if that would have happened.
Yeah, I was not feeling too good last night thinking about how J. Happ might be coming in for Game 3. And I'm telling you, that's what's the rest of the postseason. I just don't feel very confident. Obviously, I feel confident in Cole, and we just got to hope that when he's on the mound, he gives us the win. Because if he's not able to give us a win, then we're really in trouble. You know, Tanaka, it's kind of a day-by-day thing with him, or game-by-game, I should say. It's like, let's just see what he's got today. But after that, it's crazy to say this, and I know I'm not really quite sure the Yankees would go in this direction if it comes to it, but I feel more confident in Garcia than I do Happ. I really do, and Garcia doesn't have much MLB experience at all, but he's just impressed me more, and I'm the type of guy, like, I don't care so much about experience sometimes. You got to go with the better man, playing better, and it doesn't matter if J. Happ plays well or not. To me, like, I'm done with him. Like, he played well a few years ago and then got to the postseason and he choked. He's aging. I was always a fan of Severino going in the playoffs, even though he was young. We saw the wild card game a few years back when it was like 2017. He went in there and he choked. But so yeah, the pitching situation is kind of scaring me. But I had to throw in Garcia because I feel more comfortable with him throwing than Happ.
To be honest with you, I do too. I love Garcia. I love what he brings to the table. But now think about this, and I was talking to a buddy about this a little earlier in the day. Now, Game 1 is obviously a must-win. You want to win that game, you got Garrett Cole on the mound. You don't think that anybody Tampa's going to throw at you is better than Garrett Cole. If he avoids letting up a home run to E-Man Choi like he does every start against the Rays, he'll be all right. Now, if the Yankees could get a win out of Tanaka, Happ, or Garcia, that will guarantee that Cole gets another start in the series. That's what you need from the Yankees. You're not asking them to win the rest of the series. In a best of 5, you're just trying to get Garrett Cole the ball back. Like, they have to figure out something. Like, one of them has to do well. So if you're asking me right now if one of those 3 could figure out a way to get a win and the bullpen combines for a win, you know, I kind of am okay with my chances as long as Garrett Cole wins Game 1. If they lose Game 1, they're in deep trouble because then you got to rely on them to get 2 more wins out of those 3. And right now, I don't trust Tanaka. I love Tanaka, one of my favorite Yankees. I would bring him back, but the velocity's been down. He hasn't really been himself. There's something that's just not right with Tanaka, and we'll kind of see if he could bounce back and get back on track. But the recent study has shown no, and you have to be concerned about it because this Rays team is scrappy. They're going to come out. They're going to put up good at-bats. They're going to drive your pitch count up. That's how they operate.
Yeah, I actually have a question. So I don't know if the Yankees have confirmed this or not, but are they going 3-man or 4-man rotation for the postseason right now?
They haven't confirmed it, but from what Boone was saying earlier in the day before their workout was that Garcia was going to be part of the rotation, which makes me believe they're going 4.
Right.
Maybe not in the first round in this ALDS round,
Yeah.
maybe just 3. They might just, or they probably will go 4, depending on how the series goes. And remember, there's no off day, so you probably do have to go 4.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you kind of got to feel things out. If we're in a situation where we're down in the series and the season's on the line, and you could go with your 4th guy, but Cole's available, who are you going to throw? Game's on the line. I know the series is gonna be on the line the following night too, but you got to make sure you can even get to the following night. So in that situation, you got to throw Cole. So Boone's probably feeling it out, just like the rest of us are.
I think the way it goes, to be quite honest with you, I think Cole in Game 1, Tanaka Game 2, Happ in Game 3, Garcia and or Montgomery in Game 4, and then you're going to have Cole back in Game 5. And then if you advance, Tanaka gets the ball in Game 1, and you kind of bite the bullet because you got to get there in order to worry about that. So, you throw Cole in that decisive Game 5 and you see where you're going. I think that for the Rays, it's going to be a very similar situation. You're going to see Snell in Game 1. You're going to see Glasnow in Game 2. And I think Snell comes back in a possible Game 5. I think both teams are going to operate the same way. And this might be a better series than we're going to see in the next round in the American League Championship Series. This is probably going to be a better matchup than what we're going to see. Because I think that if they're both playing at the highest level, we're going to get at least 3 or 4 really competitive games here.
Yeah, I mean, Tampa's played well all season. They've played better than us head-to-head all season. They have a nice rotation. They're a hungry team. I mean, this carried on from last year. They put up a fight against Houston in the playoffs last year, and that was Cole. People aren't thinking about that. That was Cole, too. Not necessarily saying that he pitched bad against them, but he was part of that Houston rotation, and Tampa put up a fight. So, yeah, this kind of looks like it could be the ALCS. Like, I'm more concerned right now with Tampa than I would be with either Houston, Chicago, or Oakland. Not saying that would be a cakewalk, but I'm more concerned with Tampa because we just haven't played well against them. But I will say that the Yankees lineup, if they could consistently play the way that they are, which is amazing, it's phenomenal. I mean, listen, they didn't just beat up on a bad pitcher. Like, they beat Shane Bieber. He's going to be the Cy Young. So based on the way pitchers are playing right now, you just took on the best pitcher in your league, right, in the AL. So, I mean, it's hard to say, but the bats need to keep going. I don't want to go into a single game, whether Cole's on the mound, Tanaka's on the mound, Happ's on the mound, saying, why are the bats not going today? And it's going to happen. They're going to run into some speed bumps. I mean, they're not going to play flat out great every single game, but we just got to hope that they do.
Absolutely. Now, before we get into our Jets talk, let's kind of look at the National League as a whole. St. Louis is up 1-0 on the Padres. Padres are without their top 2 starters for this series. Then you have the Dodgers up against the Brewers. The Braves are moving on. They beat the Reds. That's a little bit of a disappointment. And then the Cubs are trailing the Marlins 1-0. That game that was scheduled for today got postponed due to inclement weather. But while we're, the other 2 series aren't necessarily done. But how bad were the Reds that they couldn't muster any runs over 22 innings of playoff baseball? They struck out like 28 times in 22 innings. And they got really good pitching from Bauer in Game 1. He went into the 8th. They got really good pitching from Castillo today. He went into the 6th. Like, what more can you ask from these guys?
I know. That's disappointing. And it's disappointing for their fan base, too, because how long has it been since they've been in the postseason? I mean, it's been quite some time. So your fans are looking forward to that. You finally have a shortened season. You played well enough to get into the postseason, and you choke. You didn't put up a single run. You have a good pitching staff. I mean, their rotation is good. Bauer has played great this year, and he played great in the postseason when he pitched the other day. But I don't even know. And I mean, you know what? Atlanta's a team that choked I wouldn't say choked, but they did not play well in the postseason last year either. So you would think that would kind of carry on into this year, but they outplayed Cincinnati. Obviously, didn't take that much. So yeah, Atlanta's moving on, but I don't know about Atlanta. I'm not really sold on them. I'm really not, but. And then you mentioned also before that the Chicago series is postponed. I was a little surprised that Miami took Game 1. I thought Chicago is the better team, and now obviously they're dealing with bad weather. But what's your take on that series?
I think Miami came out hungry, like they've been all year. I think Miami wins the series. I really do. I don't think that Chicago has. I think Chicago's declining. They're big guns that we know so well. They're getting up there in age. Not that they're old, but they're getting up there. I just think that the Cubs' run is over, and I think that if they go out in the first round, that they're going to trade a Chris Bryant or a Javi Baez because they're going to have to pay both. They're not going to be able to pay both. Now, I just have one question before we get into the NFL. And now, obviously, everything's not set in stone, so this is going to be just a scenario, okay? Say that
Right.
the Marlins win that series, the Cardinals beat the Padres, and now, as we know, the Reds get swept by the Braves. What team is the biggest disappointment for you in the first round?
I don't think you could put San Diego in there because they just kind of ran into an unfortunate situation. Like their top two starters are out, and that sucks for their fan base because that's another team that it's been over a decade, I believe, since the last time they were in the postseason. So, and they had a nice season, so it stinks for them. I would say the most disappointing team's got to be. You're saying out of like round one eliminations?
Well, yeah. Say the Cubs lose. They lose out, and then the Cardinals beat the Padres, and as we know, the Reds lost to the Braves. Which team would be the biggest disappointment to you?
I got to go with Cincinnati there. Just the way that they played. I mean, how do you get to the postseason? You have two games, you don't score a run. I mean, Chicago, like you said, is declining. I mean, I think Chicago's a better team than Cincinnati, right? But I like Miami more than I like Atlanta. So that's why I'm saying I got to go with Cincinnati, especially the way that they played. What do you think?
I would go Cincy because of the pitching. I just think Bauer, Castillo, and Gray, that's got to be good enough to get you a one win. And those guys pitched unbelievable. I watched Bauer's entire start. If I'm the Yankees, I'm throwing a blank check his way. I'm saying, look, come and be our number two. We know you had a little beef with Garrett Cole in college and you didn't get along and whatever, but money will make you happy. You know, he's a weird dude. He's a guy who is clinically nuts, but he is a guy that goes on a mound and he knows what he's doing. He knows how to get outs. And you know what? I like the quirkiness. I love everything about him. There's not one thing that I would change about the dude. Bring him to the Bronx. I think they're the biggest disappointment. I think that their window kind of closed on him because I thought this would be a perfect year that they can kind of muster a run because of how good the starting pitching is.
Yeah, I would not be opposed to handing Bauer a blank check, or I should say the Yankees handing Bauer a blank check. I really like, the thing I like about Bauer the most is like he has this fire in him. Like he is not afraid to like trash the Astros. He's still going at it. You know, he's still going at them with different types of cleats and shirts and anything you could think of. He's kind of jabbing at them. So I love that. And we know that the Yankees-Astros rivalry is the way that it is. And we would love to bring in a guy of, you know, his caliber to come and be the number two to Cole. So I know you mentioned money. Like money can't buy you happiness, but the Yankees giving you money is going to bring us happiness. So I can guarantee that.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine a rotation of Cole, Bauer, Severino when he's healthy, Garcia, and Schmidt. Because you figure if they sign Bauer, they're not bringing Tanaka back. Imagine that rotation, how good that would be if healthy. You know, you get rid of the...
Plus that lineup.
Yeah, with the lineup, that it's an unbelievable thought to think about. And hopefully...
And you gotta think that the way that this postseason plays out could have something big to do with that too, because Bauer's hungry because he wants to win. He's gotten close. He hasn't been able to do that. If you see the Yankees win this year, let's say we're fortunate enough to win the World Series, and it's New York, and it's the Yankees. I mean, come on. And we have the money to spend. You're basically opening the gates for free agents to run in.
And he only wants a one-year deal. He's a guy that said in the past, you know, I'm not signing anything more than a one-year deal. I'm going to bet on myself. I love that because it makes you motivated.
Yeah.
You know, you have to pitch well every single outing because you want to be great. You want to earn that paycheck. I would give him a 1 year, $30 million deal. I'd have no problem with that whatsoever. I know people are like, you're nuts for giving him $30 million. Why not? You're giving Cole $30 million. He's going to be the NL Cy Young.
But it's also 1 year. It's no long-term commitment. I mean, you're dishing out $30 million for that year, which obviously is a lot, but there's no long-term commitment. And for pitchers, I know that was the big question. It was a no-brainer to bring in Cole, but some people were still out there questioning, well, what if he gets hurt, this and that? Of course, but you have to take a chance on a guy like Garrett Cole, especially when we were in dire need of an ace. So to dish out, there's no doubt in my mind the Yankees would do that. If we just dished out how much per year to Cole for, like 7 to 9 years, I don't even know what it is. I forget, honestly. But for 1 year, of course they would do that.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. But only time will tell. We'll have to talk a little bit more about baseball next week. Hopefully by then, the Yankees will wrap up a series with the Rays and in winning fashion. Now, the time of the day that we've all been waiting for. It's Thursday Night Football. And the NFL was very desperate and couldn't find another game to put on their schedule. So what did they do? They put the Denver Broncos and the New York Jets, thinking that the Broncos may have some talent on the field. However, the Broncos don't have much talent on the field because, like the Jets, the Broncos have 900,837 injuries. And that's not an exaggeration. That's the exact truth. Drew Lock is out. You could go through an entire list of who's out. The Broncos are playing, a fourth-string quarterback, and I can't even remember his name off the top of my head, against this New York Jets team where the Jets are a dumpster fire. They really are. I don't even know what else to say about them. They're just a dumpster fire. Who wins a matchup like this? I don't think there's a real winner if you look at it.
To be completely honest, I think the only people watching this game tonight are just true football fans who just want to watch football, and Jets and Broncos fans. That's it. Like, if you're someone who doesn't really care much about the sport, you're not tuning in. It's kind of just like Thursday nights, last Thursday night's game, Miami and Jacksonville. No one cared to tune into that. People might have. I mean, I didn't. So, for tonight, I mean, listen, I said it early in the show, I'll say it again. Hoping the Jets lose here. And I don't even think that the focus is on, well, the Broncos and the Jets are looking for.
I'm going to say something that I kind of been lingering on for a very long time. There are some organizations and whatnot that do care about their fans. I firmly believe that, as we talked about them before, the New York Yankees care about their fans. Why? They're putting winning product onto the field. They don't like to settle for losing. Like George Steinbrenner instilled that, and it's still to this day. Like every year when they don't win the World Series, it's a disappointment. They know that their fans deserve better. The Jets do not simply care about their fan base. They're concerned about the money and revenue that's brought in. And here's the issue with that. Number one, Jet fans continuously pay for season tickets and continuously pay for gear and continuously pay for memorabilia and whatever you want to give them. Giving them revenue, showing them that even if they're mediocre, they're still going to accept it. And that's a big problem. There are so many Jet fans out there that don't have that logic of wanting to win, that settle for the mediocrity. Maybe they just like to watch football. Maybe they're just a diehard fan like you and I and watch come through thick or thin. But it's never going to change until the fan base stops accepting mediocrity. And mediocrity is taking an offensive lineman that's the fifth-rated lineman on the board when the best receiving core is there. Mediocrity is not building around your franchise quarterback that you ruined because you're setting him up to fail. I firmly believe Joe Douglas is setting Sam Darnold up to fail. If you look at that roster that he put around him this year, there is no talent whatsoever. Crowder's injury prone. Mims hasn't even touched the field. Brashon Perryman, look at Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson's in the top 10 in the NFL in receiving. You mean to tell me that that's a fluke? He has Teddy Bridgewater throwing to him. I would take Sam Darnold over Teddy Bridgewater. I don't know about you, but I think that if you're looking at young talent, no offensive line. Le'Veon Bell has been terrible because they don't know how to use him. I just feel like there's so much setup that Douglas has set up his quarterback to fail because they want to bring in a new face with the new coach. And I'm sorry to tell Jets fans, but Adam Gase is not going anywhere until the end of the season. Why? The Jets have a history of this. They never fire coaches within the regular season. This is a common trend with them. I don't know what it is, but they're going to let Gase ride it out because they, in turn, are worried that they're going to ruin him when they've already done the damage, and the damage is already done. So they're frustrating. They really are. But at the end of the day, remember, as much as we get upset and frustrated over them, they don't care about us. Win or lose, they're okay with the money that's coming in.
It would be counterproductive to fire him. Listen, it might have not looked good if you fired him going into a short week, but do they know how to do math either? You're in a short week, so the next one's going to be a long week. That's the time you fire a coach. Like, I just don't understand. I don't get it. So this is my prediction. I think with the Jets now getting some players healthy, back into their lineup, and, versing a depleted roster, a third-string quarterback, an 0-3 team. I'm going to say this. Nick knows this. We're not going to get into this conversation right now, but he knows I want Trevor Lawrence. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is single-handedly the savior of the New York Jets. I just want him. So in that direction, to go in that direction, you would need to lose out, pretty much. I think the Jets win this game tonight. Broncos possibly end up going for that number 1 pick. Broncos will get Trevor Lawrence. The Jets won't. And this game will haunt the Jets for years to come. That's my prediction. But aside from that, the Adam Gase situation, the fact, all right, well, you mentioned they've never fired a coach mid-season, right? They always let it kind of roll out until maybe the end of the season. Of course. I mean, that's the problem, is that they continue on this trend. That little, plan of yours doesn't work. We all know the saying, like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. It's broken. It's broken. Fix it. Like, I'm going to send it back to you. I'm losing track of what I even need to say because there's so much to say.
The Jets, the analogy I could think of when you're saying that is when you have a broken pipe and you try to put tape over it. Like, and not heavy tape, like the little see-through tape that can't hold anything. They couldn't even hold a picture on a wall. Like that kind of tape. And they just think it's going to work until it pops again. They've done this time in and time out. And, like you said, this game could haunt the Jets for years to come. It could be Mo Lewis hitting Drew Bledsoe all over again. Like, it could be something that could haunt them. But I was listening to, I think, Bart Scott before. I don't know why I was doing that, but, it is what it is. He said the best thing the Jets could do is finish ahead of the Jaguars and obviously have nobody finish ahead of them in terms of needing a quarterback. And sell ransom that pick to the Jaguars and get multiple first-round picks back so they could take Lawrence because he said they can't develop Lawrence anyway. And he goes, and then you get more picks to kind of develop your team. I found that as logical, but again, I like you said, and you see how Darnold's acting on the sideline. I feel like there's no confidence. I feel like they ruined him. He's the kind of kid that I see like Pittsburgh coming out and getting, and then him becoming an all-pro. Like with a competent coach and competent like receivers. Like he's got the talent, just that I just don't think the Jets know how to like use him. And he does make some dumb decisions. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I actually just you make a lot of good points. I'm going to get into that in a second, but I just remembered something I wanted to mention. I don't know what tonight's game does. I don't know whether they win or lose. Why would you even bring him back the following day? He should be fired Friday morning. And I'm not out here saying I want people to. I want to see people lose their jobs. But I mean, this guy has been doing a bad job for 5 years now. It's not just what he did with the Jets. He's been doing a bad job for 5 years. The only other thing I could think of, the only other job that I could think of where you could be this wrong and come back the next day is being a meteorologist. Because you can get the weather wrong 4 days a week and you're still there the next day. So Adam Gase, maybe he should go into meteorology after this, if that's what you call it. I don't know. But it's so true. Now, you mentioned before Joe Douglas and how you think he set up Sam Darnold to fail. Listen, I was talking to one of my friends last night. I truly believe that could be true. I think Joe Douglas took over this team. Not saying he loved Sam Darnold or he didn't. He never hired Adam Gase. There's all these rumors about them being friends. I don't know how true that is. I don't know how good of friends they really are, right? Like, they could be acquaintances. That doesn't mean that you're going to let your career go down the drain because he's bringing it down with you. So I really do think when you look at the offseason that they had, he promised to protect Sam Darnold, but he didn't bring in true talent. He improved the line slightly. Like, he basically removed the trash and brought in more trash. They were just new names. So it makes you feel a little optimistic. Like, maybe he's the answer or he's the answer. So didn't do anything for that. Didn't give him any receivers. The defense, you traded one of our best players away. He acquired all these picks. He basically set Darnold up to fail, but he also set Adam Gase up to fail. He didn't sign anyone to long-term deals. He didn't bring any true talent in. So he didn't give anyone for Adam Gase to work with. And on top of that, he didn't want to commit to any contracts where Adam Gase might not be there for. So why listen to you or who you want? You're not going to be here next year. So I really think that he might be trying to like find a good excuse to get rid of Darnold and get rid of Adam Gase all at once. And that's by driving them into the ground this year because he's not going to get the blame for it. People are going to say, you got to give him more time. He's the GM. This isn't his real roster, blah, 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 blah. And then you also mentioned what Bart Scott said about that scenario. And listen, everyone's coming out and saying that that's not a bad scenario to be in, right? Like, whether you have the first pick in the draft and you want to take Trevor Lawrence with all the other ammo that we already have and the money and the draft picks and all that, or you have the first pick and you find a way to stick with Darnold and trade out of that position and get a huge draft haul. Either way, you're in a nice position. I just think that if the Jets have that first pick, Joe Douglas, Adam Gase will be gone if he's not already. Joe Douglas would have he would have been under some heat and probably would have been losing faith in Sam Darnold. And I think the fan base would have turned on Sam Darnold too at that point. And I think Darnold would have been really, really badly ruined by that point. And that's where I don't know if they'd pass on a guy like Trevor Lawrence for Sam Darnold. And you already know my answer to it. I'd rather have Lawrence. So, yeah, that's my take on that. But I think that's a nice scenario to be in. I just know if I was the GM of the Jets, my ideal situation right now would be lose out to the point where you could lock up that first pick, draft Lawrence because he's a guy you just can't pass on, hire Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator from the Chiefs, who comes from a good tree in Andy Reid, and he's worked with a young quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, and has been the offensive coordinator of arguably the best offense that we've seen in years, and trade Darnold, because I think you're going to get something from him. We all can agree that Darnold's not a bust. He has some potential, so someone's going to take a chance on him. It might be Pittsburgh. It might be Indianapolis. It might be some of those organizations that have been run correctly over the years. And Darnold, it's best for Darnold too. Like, I know you'd like to keep Darnold. We all know, for the sake of his career, get him out of here.
Now, you bring up a good point about some of the teams that could be interested in a guy like Darnold. Why not the team that we're playing tonight? Like, what if Drew Lock's not the answer? What if they determine Elway says, you know what, this guy isn't as good as I thought he is, but I like this Darnold kid, and goes out and gives a second or third round pick for him. I don't know if his value is going to be that high, especially after the Jets ruin him for another 13 more games, 14 more games, whatever it happens to be. But again, it's something that you have to definitely take into consideration. I like Bieniemy too. I loved how he was fired up on the sideline Monday night. And the NFL, you hear it all the time. The NFL is trying to get more African American coaches in the game, and rightly so. There are so many good coordinators that are African American. And again, I'm not one that sees color in that retrospect, but the Jets could do a great job by hiring this guy because I think that he's going to be a great offensive mastermind. And if you can get a great head coach and a competent quarterback, or Darnold turns out to be a competent quarterback, if you ever get him a coach, whatever the situation may be, I think you're going to be in a better predicament. But Adam Gase is an offensive guru is a no-no. That guy's not even a guru in general. But you hit on one point. One more thing I want to bring up about him. You said about him being a meteorologist, but you're missing out on what his next job is going to be. We already have this determined.
I'm not sure.
Think about former Jets head coaches, what they've done after their Jets career. Herm Edwards, Eric Mangini, Rex Ryan.
Do they go to another team, fail, or do they go to college, or do they go to commentating? Because I feel like some of them have done all of that.
You go to commentating. They're going to get hired by ESPN.
Well, he's not. He can't even look at the camera, which if you saw from his press conference, so that's not going to happen.
Well, knowing that they hired Mangini and Rex, I don't know. That might be the case. Now, what's your takes? What are your keys to tonight's game? Obviously, you think to lose, but if you're the Jets and you're actually trying to win, what are your keys to the game?
Oh, man. We should probably ask Adam Gase that. He's probably going to hesitate to answer like I do. But, listen, they're getting Jamison Crowder back. I mean, that's how bad this team is. And I have to sit here and say, well, they're getting Jamison Crowder back.
Super Bowl MVP right here.
It's bad. Obviously, listen, I'm sure you got to get to the quarterback. This is a third stringer. We might even see Blake Bortles come in tonight. That's how bad Denver is, too. Like, they just picked him up. He doesn't even know the playbook. They're going to be throwing out the routes to him on the sidelines. But I would say get to the quarterback. Obviously, listen, if they want to try to save Darnold's career by any way possible, try to get him on track tonight. Because if he looks bad tonight, I'm sorry, it ain't going to get much better than this. So, yeah, defensively, they got to get to the quarterback. And then offensively, I would just let Darnold throw. Just let him throw. Do not keep giving the ball to Frank Gore because that's doing nothing for Darnold either. But I will say for the keys to Denver winning is I wouldn't say it's a key, but I think they're kind of in a nice position because the Jets don't really have tape on this kid at quarterback, and it's a short week. So who knows? If this kid comes out and he's throwing the ball well, it could catch the bad defense by surprise.
That is a good point, too. No tape on the quarterback. But here's my 3 takes for the game tonight. Number 1, give Perrine the carries. Why are we giving Frank Gore the carries? Third and short, goal line situations, I'm perfectly okay with that. But in this situation, no, sir. Please give Perrine the majority of the carries. Number 2, you mentioned it. Get Darnold throwing. Open up the Madden playbook, Gase. Stop calling the same 3 plays. I can predict the plays at home. Please stop calling the same plays. I don't want to see any third down screens. They make me sick to my stomach. Please do not do it tonight. And finally, if you're Denver, run the ball. If you get 25 carries, you're going to run for 100 yards. The Jets defense is not stopping a nosebleed. Keep them on the field. Make the pressure on them. And then if you can make Darnold make a turnover or 2, that's big. That's the key to the game. Now, bold prediction. Jets win tonight. Jets go 0-16. How?
Yeah, I gave that prediction before. I think the Jets win tonight. I'm going to say ownership or someone in the organization comes out and says that, they're on the right track and, Jets fans just need to be patient. That Adam Gase is a offensive mastermind, genius. And then Denver, I think, is set up in a nice position for the rest of the way if Drew Lock doesn't come back for that number 1 pick. And I think they would jump on Trevor Lawrence. And even if it's not necessarily Denver, I just think a win tonight is going to hurt the Jets in the long run. And it's going to take them out of position to get a guy like Lawrence. And it's for no reason at all. It's just bad luck that they're versing such a beat-up team at this point. And they're allowing a coach to come back who's going to try to save his job. And it's going to happen just like last year. I mean, it's not as easy of a schedule as last year, but we wasted wins last year. We could have been in a better draft position, and we sat there and went 7-9, which does nothing for an organization. So, what's your bold prediction?
I don't know who to take in this one. I want to think that Denver beats them, but I'm with you. I think the Jets are going to win this ball game tonight. I think, like you said, it hurts their draft stock. I think that tonight is the most likely game that they can win all year. Maybe they take one from the Dolphins. Maybe they take one from San Diego in a few weeks if San Diego's not healthy at quarterback position. But, this is their most likely win, and it's only because Denver's on their JV football team that they picked up from a high school in the local area just last week. That's the only reason why. And I don't know how to explain it more. I just think that if the Jets lose tonight, then they really need to reevaluate why they're keeping Adam Gase around, because he's ruining Sam Darnold as it is. There's no clear-cut difference whether he's here or not. I've seen kids on Madden that are 5 or 6 years old have a more extensive playbook. So it's just frustrating at that. Now, give me your final thoughts as we head closer to kickoff.
Final thoughts on the show or final thoughts on the game again?
You could do both. That's perfectly fine with me.
Well, I think obviously, like I said at the beginning of the show, we had a lot to talk about today, and it's going to continue to be like that because we're diving into the playoffs. We have football just got started up again. Hockey's out the door now, but I'm sure the NBA talk will start picking up again because they're going to go to free agency and the draft process is going to come up. So basketball is still going to be a topic on the show. We know that. I am not looking forward to this Jets game. I'm trying to get in touch with a few of my Denver Bronco fan friends, see if I can pick up a jersey for tonight because I'm the biggest Denver Broncos fan you got. I think Denver fans rooting for the Jets and Jets fans are rooting for Denver at this point. You know what? I did want to mention one last thing about Adam Gase. I mentioned before, winner or loss, the guy could be fired, right? I don't know what a win does, but if you lose this game, how can you possibly convince anybody, the media, fans, anyone, that this guy deserves a job the next day? I mean, the Denver Broncos are practically handing you a win.
I'm going to keep my final thought short and sweet. And, I'm not excited about this Jet game. Neither are you. But we're in the same boat. We usually are in regards to the Jets because, we've dealt with this for 25-plus years now. Thank goodness for the New York Yankees. Thank goodness. Even if they lose to Tampa. Thank goodness for the New York Yankees because they keep me sane. They actually want to win. Unlike the New York Jets who don't care enough. But anyway, we'll have to discuss whether or not the Jets win next week, if the 0-16 trend will continue. If your tank for Trevor is still alive and well, we'll see if that's the ultimate case. But until then, this has been another episode of the Let's Debate podcast, powered to you by Delahanty Media. Follow our socials listed below. Again, enjoy the football game as much as you can tonight. You probably could see a high school game in your local area that's probably more competitive and more talented than what you're going to see. But, it is what it is. Maybe catch some playoff baseball if you don't want to be completely and utterly tormented by the Jets. So anyway, I'm Nick Delahanty. The guy next to me is Kyle Delahanty. We love doing this. We love talking to you about sports. Interact with us on our social media feeds. And until next week, same time, same place. Take care, everyone, and we'll talk to you really soon.
See you guys next week. Enjoy the game.